Cold open. Tuesday, 11:47 a.m. Break room of St. Mercy General, third floor vending machine humming its usual off-key tune. Dr. Elias Renn, 41 years old, general practitioner, divorced, mediocre golfer, terrible plant parent, stood staring at a bag of pretzels that had gotten stuck on the coil for the third time this week. He gave the machine a single practiced thump. The pretzels dropped. He caught them without looking. That's when the recruiter appeared. Tall, gray-skinned, wearing a suit that didn't quite understand what a suit was supposed to do, and holding a tablet that projected light directly into the air. Dr. Renn, we require a physician. The posting is hazardous, compensation is substantial, survival is not guaranteed. Elias opened the pretzels. Sure, he said, beats the DMV. He signed the holographic form with his thumbprint still chewing. Warning scene. The recruiter, designation Vantic of the Threll Coordination Office, sat across from him in a windowless room 3 days later, sliding a data slate toward him, with the grim ceremony of a man reading a will. Dr. Renn, I must formally advise you. The mission designation is HFY 9. Atmospheric toxicity rated Class 7. Native fauna rated Apex Predator, multiple. Survival rate of prior expeditions, 11%. I have personally briefed 4 physicians on this posting. 2 declined. 1 resigned mid-briefing. 1 is currently receiving psychological treatment. Elias flipped through the slate with the mild interest of a man reading a cereal box. You said 11% like it's supposed to scare me, he said. I did rural rotations in Alabama during tornado season. 11% sounds like a Tuesday. Vantic's throat vents flared, the Threll equivalent of a wince. This is not a joke, doctor. I'm not laughing, Elias said, and meant it in the flattest possible way. Vantic gathered the slate back, jaw tight. Very well, report to Bay 4 at 0600. Don't blame me, he said, voice dropping. If you come back in a box. Elias just nodded and asked where the coffee was. Squad introduction. Bay 4 smelled like ozone and nerves. 4 figures stood in a loose formation under the hangar lights, and Elias, coffee in hand, scrub still on under his jacket because he hadn't bothered changing, walked up to complete the set. First was Karsu Devren, a Threll war medic with skin that shifted color based on ambient toxin levels, right now a warning amber, since the hangar's ventilation was apparently acceptable but suboptimal. She had survived 4 Class 6 extraction zones and held the Threll Combat Medical Cross, an honor given to exactly 6 living beings in the galaxy. She looked at Elias's coffee like it was a loaded weapon. Second was Bakhtar, a Ulmati heavy trooper, nearly 9 feet of corded muscle and chitin plating, with a voice that resonated through the floor when he spoke. His species could survive vacuum exposure for 90 seconds unaided. He'd led the siege breach at Corvassa Station, a battle taught in 3 different military academies. He glanced at Elias's unarmored frame and said nothing, which was somehow worse than an insult. Third was Elin Sask. Small, quick, with 4 segmented arms and compound eyes that never quite stopped moving. She was the squad's engineer, decorated for defusing a live Threll dreadnought core with 11 seconds on the clock. She didn't look at Elias at all. She was too busy recalibrating something that sparked. Fourth, last introduced almost as an afterthought, was Elias Renn, human, physician, no combat rating, no survival medals, no known resistance to toxins, extreme heat, extreme cold, or apparently common sense. Karsu looked him over, unimpressed. This is the specialist? He is, Vantic said from the doorway, sounding like a man who had already made peace with several bad decisions. He carries no armor, Bakhtar rumbled. I get hot easy, Elias said, sipping his coffee. Elin finally glanced up. Does he understand the mission parameters? I filled out a form, Elias said. There was a box for allergies, I left it blank. The 3 aliens exchanged a look that, translated from 4 different species into one universal expression, meant roughly, this man is going to die first. Elias just smiled and asked if the ship had snacks. Comedy escalation loop. The atmosphere of HFY 9, Karsu said, as the dropship rattled through orbit, contains sulfur compounds at concentrations that will blister exposed tissue within 4 minutes. Elias nodded slowly. So, Yellowstone. Or what is a Yellowstone? National Park smells like rotten eggs. Boiled a guy's shoe once. My Uncle Frank still complains about it at Thanksgiving. He shrugged. You get used to it. Karsu's color shifted from amber to a confused violet. You have walked through sulfur gas, recreationally. With a hot dog in each hand, Elias confirmed. The gravity on the surface fluctuates, Eileen said, tapping a readout, between 1.2 and 3.4 standard. Structural failure is common in untrained personnel. Sounds like my ex-wife's mood, Elias said. You just wait it out and don't make eye contact. Bakhtar's plating clicked, which Elias had learned meant he was trying not to laugh. Eileen just stared. That is not a scientific comparison. Wasn't trying to be scientific, Elias said. Was trying to be accurate. There are ground-dwelling predators, Karsu continued, voice tightening. Roughly 4 meters in length, capable of sensing body heat through solid rock. They hunt in packs of 6 to 12. Elias thought about it. So coyotes. They are not coyotes. Bigger coyotes, then. We had a guy back home who lost half his garden to coyotes. Started leaving out radios playing talk shows. Scared him off. Something about human voices. Bakhtar leaned forward. You are suggesting we talk at the predators. I'm suggesting you don't panic, Elias said. Panic's what they smell first. Eileen made a note, Karsu made too. The terrain includes acidic bog fields, Eileen said. One misstep and the limb dissolves in under 90 seconds. Louisiana in July, Elias said immediately. Swamp, you just watch where you step and you don't wear your good boots. You have personal experience with dissolving terrain? No, Elias admitted. But I've lost a boot to mud that fought back. Same energy. There is a seasonal storm system, Karsu said, quieter now, almost testing him, that generates electromagnetic discharge capable of stopping a heart from 30 meters. Elias considered this for a long moment. Lightning, he said finally. We get that every summer. Guy 2 houses down got struck twice, still mows his lawn. Twice? Bakhtar's voice cracked the deck plating slightly. Frank's a stubborn man. Command has flagged the region as containing an apex bioorganism. Vantik's voice crackled over comms, grim. Classification unknown. Previous surveillance drones. Lost. The cabin went quiet. Elias finished his coffee. Every town's got one thing nobody talks about, he said. We just call it the woods behind Denny's and leave it alone. Nobody laughed that time. Arrival and world reveal hit them like a slap. The sky was the color of a fresh bruise, streaked with drifting yellow cloud that hissed against the hull as the dropship descended. The ground below was cracked obsidian glass, veined with glowing orange fractures that pulsed like something breathing underneath. Wind screamed across the ramp the second it opened, carrying grit that sparked against Bakhtar's armor plating. Karsu's suit display flared red instantly. Toxin levels, critical, seals engaging. Bakhtar staggered as the gravity fluctuation hit, his 9-foot frame lurching sideways. Servos in his exoframe whining under sudden triple weight. Eileen's forearms moved in a blur, slapping patches over 3 separate suit breaches that had opened in the first 90 seconds, cursing in 2 languages. Elias stepped off the ramp in his jacket, took a breath, coughed once, and said, smells like the state fair. He looked around at the churning yellow sky, the glowing cracks in the ground, the wind trying to strip paint off the hull, and shrugged his jacket tighter. Bit muggy, he added. Karsu turned, suit hissing with strain, staring at him through her visor. Your readings, she said slowly, checking her own scanner aimed at him, are nominal. You are not in respiratory distress. I get worse hay fever in April, Elias said, already crouching to examine a strange glass-like plant growing out of the obsidian ground. This is nothing. Bakhtar, still fighting his own suit's overload alarms, watched the unarmored human calmly poke at alien flora with one bare finger, and said nothing at all. The bog field. The squad approached the acid marshes in full containment gear. Pressure-sealed boots, neutralizing sprays, a designated limb loss response kit that Elin carried like a sacred object. Every step was measured, scanned, tested twice. Elias walked past them in his boots, testing the ground with a stick he'd found. You just got a feel for the give, he said, tapping twice, stepping left. Same as walking a frozen pond back home. Solid sound, you're fine. Hollow sound, you go around. You are navigating a chemically dissolving biome by listening to a stick, Elin said, voice pitching upward. Worked so far, Elias said, already 20 feet ahead. The storm. The electromagnetic storm rolled in exactly on schedule, and the squad dug into a reinforced bunker, running full grounding protocols, sealing every gap, monitoring heart rates on backup batteries. Elias sat outside under a rock overhang, eating a ration bar, watching lightning fork sideways across the bruised sky. You are exposed. Karsu's voice crackled over comms, somewhere between panic and disbelief. I'm under cover, Elias said. Overhang's thick enough. Same rule as camping. Don't be the tallest thing around, don't touch metal, and don't stand next to a lone tree. There are no trees here. Exactly, so I'm fine. The predators. The pack found them at dusk. 6 low heat-sensing shapes moving fast across the glass plain, engines of teeth and instinct. Bakhtar raised his weapon. Karsu called for formation. Elin triggered a defensive field generator that drained half their remaining power. Elias stood very still, pulled out a small speaker he'd rigged from spare dropship parts, and hit play. A recorded human voice. Some old radio broadcast Vantic had loaded onto the ship archives out of boredom. Droned out across the plain, calm and monotonous, talking about weather patterns and grain prices. The pack slowed, circled, hesitated, then peeled off into the dark, unnerved by a sound their instincts couldn't categorize as prey or threat. Radio trick, Elias said, switching it off. Told you. Bakhtar lowered his weapon very, very slowly and looked at the human like he was reconsidering several assumptions about the universe. Log entry, Karsu Renn. The human does not fight the planet. He negotiates with it using logic that should not work, and yet it works. I am beginning to suspect he is either the most fortunate being I have ever met, or he understands something about survival that our training has never covered. I do not know which possibility unsettles me more. The heat vents. The valley of thermal vents was the mission's final obstacle. Geysers of superheated gas erupting at random intervals, ground temperature high enough to warp standard-issue boot soles within minutes. The squad moved in short, calculated bursts, timing every vent cycle with military precision, sweating even inside cooled armor. Elias walked through at a normal pace, hands in his pockets. Texas parking lot in August, he muttered. You just don't stand still too long, and you don't touch the metal. A vent erupted 12 feet to his left. He didn't flinch, just adjusted his path a step to the right like avoiding a puddle. Elin, watching from behind a heat-shielded barrier, finally said what the whole squad had been thinking for 10 days. I do not think he is ignoring the danger, she said slowly. I think he has simply already survived worse on a planet that does not consider itself dangerous at all. Status flip. By the second week, something had shifted. Karsu no longer scanned Elias's vitals out of worry. She scanned them out of curiosity, cataloging baseline human tolerance like she was documenting a new law of physics. Bakhtar had started walking a half step behind him on unfamiliar terrain, watching where the human's boots landed before placing his own. Elin asked him questions now. Actual questions, taking notes on his answers like they were field data. You are not stronger than us, Karsu said one evening, watching him calmly redress a cut he'd gotten from alien thornbrush. Your readings confirm this. You are, by every metric, unremarkable. Yep, Elias agreed, not looking up. And yet, she continued quieter, I find myself looking to you first before protocol. Elias tied off the bandage and shrugged. Difference not the same as weak, he said. Your planet's just never had to deal with my kind of stubborn before. Nobody argued with that. Cliffhanger close. They found the structure on day 12, buried half beneath the glass plane, its architecture unlike anything native to Kesar 9. Dark metal etched with symbols that made Ilin's translator device sputter and die mid-sentence. Karsu's scanner flared red in a way none of her previous readings had. This is not natural terrain, she said slowly. This is not even Kesar 9 technology. Bakhtar raised his weapon toward the structure's sealed entrance, plating bristling. Then whose is it, he said, and why is it opening? A low hum rolled out from the widening seam in the dark metal, and the temperature around them dropped 10 degrees in seconds. Elias crouched, staring into the growing dark of the doorway with the same mild curiosity he'd given the pretzel machine 2 weeks and 1 galaxy ago. Huh, he said quietly. Now that's new. Somewhere behind them, Vantik's voice crackled through the comms, tight with something that wasn't quite panic yet. "Team, fall back. That structure was not in any survey, I repeat, and fall back now." Nobody moved. The hum grew louder,